Vår första gäst är vår keynote speaker. Vi pratar om Francisco Betti. Francisco Betti är ansvarig för Shaping of the Future of Advanced Manufacturing and Production. Och Francisco kommer att he will enter us pretty soon. We are still waiting for Charlotte Brogren to come into the picture. So I will introduce you really soon, Francisco. Francisco här då driver ett område inom World Economic Forum som både försöker få svenska och internationella företag att samlas kring framtida insatser, men även titta på framtidens arbetsplatser, framtidens jobb och framtidens gröna industrier. Man har bland annat satt upp ett 50-tal lighthouse factories runt om i världen. Man åker runt till olika industrier och ber dem visa upp det bästa de kan kring industri 4.0.
Och det finns ju till och med ett lighthouse-fabrik här i Sverige, eller hur?
Uppe i Sandvik i Gimo så har World Economic Forum hittat en fabrik som de tycker lever upp till deras förväntningar på en industri 4.0-satsning.
Jättespännande. Jag får vända mig inåt här till våra supporter på Tripus som är dagens backoffice. Har ni sett några signaler från Charlotte Brogren än?
Inte än så länge.
Inte än så länge. Vi kan vänta lite till. Vi kan ju nämna, Johan, om det är någonting mer du vill flika in på när det gäller World Economic Forum. Det är inte så ofta vi får möta dem. Och vi är jättetacksamma att ha den här kontakten med World Economic Forum inom produktionsområdet.
För er som inte har följt deras verksamhet, så de Davos-möten som ni ser om i media är kanske bara en 10-15% av World Economic Forums verksamhet. I vanliga fall så gör de en stor mängd rapporter som är tillgängliga på nätet där de beskriver utvecklingen på att med hjälp av större konsultföretag och industrier som kommer kunna gå ut och visa hur världen förändrar sig över tid. Så jag kan verkligen rekommendera er att gå till deras hemsida och ladda ner de rapporter som finns kring utvecklingen just nu. Väldigt mycket kring covid och väldigt mycket kring omställningen som Francisco kommer att prata om. I det här passet kommer vi också att träffa Lena Sellgren. Lena som är chefsekonom på Business Sweden och är en dörröppnare av mått i världen för Sverige. Och vi kommer också prata med Klas Wåhlberg som är vd för Teknikföretagen. Teknikföretagen som är värdorganisation för Produktion2030 också.
Det stämmer bra det, och det är ju där jag sitter på dagarna. Jag befinner mig faktiskt på jobbet idag fast i ett eget rum. Ska vi se om vi har fått någon signal till Charlotte Brogren om hon har checkat in. Vad säger ni på Tripus?
Nej.
Med oss Charlotte? Nej?
Nej.
Nej, vad säger du Johan? Ska vi växla spår då till engelska och bjuda in Francisco Betti och de andra att göra den här väldigt spännande globala blicken ut i världen på produktionen? Jag lämnar ordet till dig och vi byter språk tillfälligt till engelska. Varsågod Johan.
Tack så mycket Cecilia. Then I would like to switch to English and to invite Francisco Betti to the panel. Francisco Betti, you are a leading person at the World Economic Forum. You're head of Shaping the Future of Advanced Manufacturing and Production. That sounds like an amazing global job. Thank you so much for being with us today. Your organization has enormous influence all over the world. I heard somewhere that they had to start the OECD just to counteract the impact and influence of World Economic Forum. And I know that the forum also focuses a lot on stakeholders and on strong collaboration building to solve our challenges. So which are the main global challenges that you see from your perspective right now?
Well, Johan, first of all, let me thank you and Cecilia for hosting me today. I mean, it's a real pleasure to be with all of you and having this opportunity to interact with the Swedish manufacturing community. And apologies for being probably the only reason of why we need to have this conversation in English. I'm committed to getting at least somehow fluent in Swedish in some years from now. I think that your question is very pertinent because we are living through very turbulent times. So when it comes to challenges and trends that we are observing, I think that first of all, the pandemic remains for every company and our society is the main concern right now. And it's not only on the public health side of things, but it's the economic crisis that is coming with it. And we are going through unprecedented disruptions that are here to stay. There were some positive signs during these last couple of days on a possible vaccine being developed. I mean, even once the vaccine is going to be available, it will take time to be distributed. So we need to think about this current public health and economic crisis as a long-term game. And that will inevitably affect companies and society in the months to come. Now, I think that if you really want to, and if we really want to understand what is going on today, we do need to take a step back and look at the pre-pandemic world. And it's when you look at that pre-pandemic world where you can identify what were the major trends that were transforming the global economy, but specifically, and I know that we have an audience which is specifically interested in manufacturing and production and digitization, specifically the world of global value chains. Now, those trends can be summarized in four main areas. The first one is the fourth industrial revolution that started years ago, but is still ongoing and accelerating. I mean, what technology can deliver today, it's unprecedented. And it was something that was remarkable since the pandemic started, was to see how some of these technologies are really helping navigate the crisis, are helping companies build resilience, agility, and the flexibility that is needed to face the new disruptions we are all going through. The second one, and again, I'm talking about the pre-pandemic world, it's the geopolitical tensions that are still here in place. Yes, there are a lot of new developments in the geopolitical space, but if you look at the number of conflicts in the world, if you add to that trade wars and the slowdown in global trade, I think that that's another key phenomenon that started before the pandemic, and it's something that we need to tackle going forward as well. And to that, I think we need to add two more mega trends, one which is the slowing global economy, with ups and downs in different countries, but overall with the general slowing trend. And you need to add to that, you know, the nuances and complexity that phenomenon such as aging population bring to the table. And finally, what may become the main source of disruptions going forward, which is climate change. The imperative for sustainability, which we all know is no longer negotiable, and it's something that both companies and society need to tackle. Now, when you look at those four trends, or fourth industrial revolution, geopolitical tensions, slowing global economy, and climate change, I think that what COVID-19 did was to accelerate the deployment of a perfect storm that was already forming in the horizon. Now it's not with us, and we need to tackle it. You're on mute, Johan.
Wanted to switch from your face to mine. So now your chairman and your founder, Klas, recently released a book on the Great Reset. So I also understand that the Great Reset is the main World Economic Forum initiative for 2020 and especially for 2021. I assume that you will not have this live Davos meeting. That will be a super spreader of class if you had. But I assume that this is the way that you will be working. And I had the great pleasure to participate in some of your meetings also about the Great Reset. Would you like to explain to us what the Great Reset really means and what impacts we can expect from it?
Absolutely, and you were right when you were saying, Johan, that we are planning to host our big annual meeting in May this next year. So not in January, but in May. And then in January, what we'll have is a series of virtual and digital dialogues to build momentum towards that in-person meeting. But the Great Reset, I mean, it's an initiative that we have launched at the World Economic Forum, but it's also an intellectual framework to help our multi-stakeholder community think through how to navigate the current crisis and build a better world for the post-pandemic scenario. Let me maybe share just a few slides that will help us put the conversation in context. Give me a quick sign if you're able to see my screen.
We see it.
So, and just to connect the Great Reset with what I was saying before, right? So COVID-19 created this perfect storm that is particular for those of us who are in the manufacturing and supply broader and production ecosystem, you know, created unprecedented disruptions. I mean, just to give you some numbers, you know, data coming from a survey we did with over 400 chief operating and chief supply chain officers over the coming months, you know, shows us that 82% of them acknowledged that their manufacturing supply systems were disrupted for the very first time, both on the demand and the supply side. And that's unprecedented. That poses new and different challenges, and are also highlighting some important weaknesses of our, let's say, global systems. First of all is that the way in which supply chains and supply networks were designed were probably not right and need to be rethought. They need to be redesigned. We all realize also that technology can play the major role. You guys were referring to the lighthouses, these most advanced manufacturing facilities in the world. Well, we know and we have the evidence that they were able to navigate the crisis much better than anybody else. So technology can play the new and great role going forward as well. And then, of course, the need for strength and collaboration. We are not collaborating enough, whether it's in between companies, across industries, or with government. So there's a clear need for strengthening private and public-private cooperation at the global level. Now, you know, focusing on how we solve those issues, bring back productivity to the levels that were before, and drive economic growth, it's not enough anymore. And that's where the Great Reset comes into play. What is the Great Reset? Is the potential and the unique opportunity we have to work as a global community to rebuild and redesign the foundations of our economic and social systems, and to do that in a way that delivers value to all stakeholders in society, meaning, of course, the companies who have today the ability to be more resilient, more agile, more flexible, more profitable, to drive economic growth, but at the same time to, you know, engage workers in a new way and drive value and you know, augment workforce capability, and also have a positive impact on the environment, which, as I said before, is a must do in today's world. And what is interesting is that, you know, for COVID-19, we may find a vaccine at one point, hopefully soon. I'm not sure whether we'll find a vaccine for climate change. So that's, for me, priority number 2 after the current public health crisis that we are facing right now. So, and then what is the Great Reset Initiative? Well, it's a platform for all global stakeholders to work together, to discuss, but also, most important, to incubate new partnerships and collaborations that will help us move the needle along the 5 domains that you can see on the screen. So I think the key messages here is, yes, COVID-19 brought big disruptions. We need to bring productivity and the economy back to the pace at which it was in pre-COVID levels, at least, but that's not enough. I think that this crisis is the opportunity to reset our systems, our intellectual frameworks, and really approach the future in a way that is more inclusive and sustainable, and that works for all. Now, you know, because we have a primary manufacturing audience with us today, I think that what is important is, you know, when it comes to the future of manufacturing, specifically in the context of the Great Reset, I think that the opportunity we have is, first of all, to leverage advanced manufacturing and fourth industrial revolution to transform operations, to really drive and increase resilience, agility, flexibility, and productivity. The second and unique opportunity that we are seeing taking off at space, and many companies are starting to launch new efforts on this front, is the ability to leverage those investments in technology, not just to transform operations, factories, production lines, but also to connect value chains end to end and enable new customer experiences. Why that's an exciting window of opportunity? Because we believe that that's what is going to drive new and fresh growth in the future. Those are the new services, so those are the new business opportunities that companies will be developed on top of their operations in the years to come. I think that's something that was extremely clear during the crisis and will be essential as we transform the world of manufacturing going forward. It's the workforce. You know, even if technology is playing a major role in driving productivity and efficiency, 70% of tasks in today's manufacturing are driven by workers, are human tasks. And therefore, leveraging technology to augment worker capabilities, massively investing in upskilling and reskilling, and finding new ways to engage the workforce in the transformation of production systems and business models is going to be another key driver and success factor going forward. And finally, and here is where manufacturing is once again on top of the global agenda, manufacturing has been traditionally a main source of well-paid jobs and sustained growth. So I think that the opportunity we have is to manufacturing to play back that important role it played to contribute to inclusive and societies where social mobility is a reality, and also to drive sustainability. Let me be just, because I'm passionate about the topic, let me spend one more second on that point. When you look at how the lighthouses, these companies that are some of the most advanced facilities in the world, how they are leveraging the investments in digital to reduce energy consumption, to reduce material consumption, to optimize waste management, to rethink design and leverage traceability solutions for reuse, recycling, remanufacturing. There's already a sustainability revolution which is taking place and going on in that space. So hopefully we'll see more and more developments going forward. Johan, back to you.
That's amazing, Francisco, and I know that you are spending so much time and effort on these issues. And the 4 dimensions that you're talking about, the Industry 4.0 impact and slow economic development, geopolitical tension, the climate, and compare that and combine that with the development of the workforce. OECD is expecting us to have more than 10% unemployment globally by January. So we're looking forward to some shaky times, I guess. What do you think is the main question for Sweden? Sweden is a little bit different than some countries. We always place ourselves in the top of the innovation and the digitalization scales. What is your perspective of Sweden in this?
Well, let me highlight something that I believe can make a huge difference, which is exactly the platform that through Production2030 you guys are providing. I think that the ability to pull together at a national level companies, governments, academia, and civil society, and I say civil society, I mean unions can play the major role in shaping the future of manufacturing in the right direction. I think that that's going to be essential for Sweden, but also for many countries. And when you look at at the developments that you have made over the past years, you are clearly ahead of the curve. And I think that that's essential, because that's how you will inform the next generation of policies that could help Sweden maintain its leading position, remain a competitive country for the many exporting industry sectors that are well established and that Sweden has developed over the years. Now, that said, I think that Sweden is going to face some of the same challenges that we're going to face elsewhere. Aging population, and how we are going to transfer the know-how that the baby boomers who are studying manufacturing have, and combine that with the new digital generation that will take over those jobs. I think it's scaling the adoption of fourth industrial revolution technologies. And while you see in Sweden large corporations being ahead of the curve, there's also a huge network of small and medium-sized enterprises, very often suppliers of that broader network of corporations, that will need support, to keep the pace with the green transformation. And then the third one, I think in a changing global geopolitical and macroeconomic landscape, is rethinking the role that Sweden will play in new and future global value chains. And I think that we need to be, I've heard a lot about, global value chains are going to be reshuffled. We're going to see massive changes. I think we need to be cautious. It will depend. It will go industry by industry. We're going to see changes, but still, I think that the crisis provides an opportunity to reposition or further position the country as a leading manufacturing hub and nation within the broader changing global economy.
That's fantastic. Francisco, I would like to move now to Lena, but you will keep you online so that we can come back to you in the discussions. So Lena Sellgren, we have you there. Good. Lena Sellgren, welcome to us. You are a strategist and a chief economist at Business Sweden. For those of you that don't know what that is, it is our main instrument, Swedish national government instrument, to open the doors to Sweden. So to help industries and to help Swedish industries to emerge and to help other industries to come here to collaborate. And you're the global door opener then. You are excellently building this image then of Sweden and Swedish industry abroad. How do you view the perspective of the Great Reset as presented by Francisco? Do you agree, or do you have other perspectives on this?
Yes, and thank you so much, Johan, for this nice introduction. And thank you to Francisco as well for an inspiring presentation. I should say that I agree mostly to what has been said. And I think it's also encouraging to listening in that we can see Sweden in the future being the leading industrial manufacturing country, because that's also how I see it from my perspective. And I would like to just go back a little bit to see the trends that was mentioned. And I think it's really good to have the perspective that you look ahead and see what kind of trends did we have prior to the COVID-19 crisis, and how have they developed now. So we can actually see that the digital transformation, for sure, as well as green transition, the focus on it at least, and some other trends as well, actually accelerating during the crisis. So what has not been possible, or what we thought were not possible prior to the crisis, it's something that we just do it, because when we need to do it, we can do it. We have actually shown this globally, that it's possible. So hopefully we will be able to take use of this also as a catalyst for the green transition, because then we can really have an impact globally. But how I see it is also an important thing that we see, that was something that we saw prior to the crisis as well, is that we see that the world is becoming more and more regionalized. We do have a global world or a global market, but we see that when it's not as important, or that labor is not such a big share of the production cost as before because of the enabling technologies, then it means that there are other factors that are more important for companies when they locate globally. It's, for example, to be closer to the market and the customers, to customize, and also if you do this in a proper way, you can have environmental and climate positive effects as well. So that's something that we see. It's playing out more and more clearly that we have 3 production regions globally: North America, Europe, and Asia, with the US, Germany, China, and of course Sweden adding a big value to this. But we still have the superpower conflict between the US and China, even if we are lucky that we will probably end up with Joe Biden in the White House in January. So then we will have a common development globally, and hopefully a little bit more at least of collaboration, focus on, or focus maybe is wrong to say, but the US will probably go back into the Paris Agreement again. And it makes sense, especially in a longer run perspective. But we will still have the underlying conflict. It's a matter of fact that we see that the economic power is moving towards east. And with economic power, we usually see political power as well. So how this is playing out right now is the tech war. So it could mean that companies not just need to be present, the multinationals in these 3 production regions, they also have to relate to different digital infrastructure, which is costly, of course. But that's something that we need to adapt to. And Francisco mentioned also how should Sweden position itself in this new global environment, or that we actually have, and how can we collaborate when we have different systems. That will of course be a challenge. But what I see from a Swedish perspective is that we are in the forefront. We do have many of the solutions for the global challenges that we have jointly, not least the climate challenge and inclusion as well. We do have the models. We collaborate, government, academia, and the business sector in this triple helix. Other countries do it as well, but we have flat organizations. We are used to collaborate. We are a small open economy. We need to collaborate, so we can hopefully use this even more in a global context. And as we all know, we are in the forefront when it comes to advanced manufacturing, in particular smart industry, smart transport, energy, just to mention a few. So I think even more, as has also been said by Francisco, actually collaborate, be more efficient in the way we collaborate, open up, have the open innovation, so we can also connect small, medium-sized companies, sub-suppliers that do not have the same networks and not either the financial muscles to the same extent. They are growing, so they will probably have it in the future, but right now we need to think in new ways. But I think there are possibilities, not without challenges. I think you are on mute, Johan. At least I can't hear you.
Yes. Yeah. So which is the most important challenge that you would address directly?
Yeah, the key challenge is, of course, competence, to find the right competencies, and also to work jointly with reskilling, upskilling. But I think there is a sharp competition to get the most skilled people globally. So I think it's a matter of fact that we see more of a global market when it comes to competence and skill. And I think there is also a need for other kind of skills, because it's another kind of leadership that we need, and a collaboration, to be agile, to have the holistic view, to work more and more with new business models, to understand more of how you collaborate in this more complex world, and service innovation. I think that's key as well, because when you move into new kind of business models, you need to understand and to look ahead at least 10 years to understand what we need to do today. So that's important. But we also some years ago initiated an advanced manufacturing initiative at Business Sweden in close collaboration with the American Embassy and American Chamber of Commerce in Stockholm. And the aim of this was actually to increase business between the US and Sweden within advanced manufacturing, and also the dialogue between governments and the business sector and also the academia, of course. So that was the goal of this. And the first meeting, we actually invited you, Johan, to this as a keynote speaker at that time. And then we started with the enabling technologies and asked the companies, what are the most hard things, or what do you need help with? And it played out quite clear that it was 3 things. Of course, competence, that's key. It's always key, I should say, with competence, the relevant competence and skill. And standards, of course, because being able to work globally, you need to have common standards, or it's of help, at least. And the third one was to have test beds, to be able to join test beds. And we have heard some good examples of this, I think, to have this, to work with this and be able to join it and see what is this, and not least for small, medium-sized companies.
That's fantastic, Lena. I mean, we were so happy to have you as this not gatekeeper, but door opener rather. We will now move to Klas Wåhlberg. Klas, you are the CEO of Teknikföretagen, which is the employer organization of the Swedish manufacturing industry. You're much welcome to this event.
Thank you, Johan, and thanks Francisco and Lena for giving a great presentation. Initially, it's not much to be said, and not everything has been said and done, but it's very clear that we are facing some very interesting future. Johan, you addressed me some questions before, and yes, on a small keynote or a small note here. If you want me to repeat them for you?
Yes, absolutely. You have the opportunity to talk to Swedish industrial executives every day. That's not so many people that has that. So you would get a unique influence from them, information from them, what's on their mind and what their challenges are. Would you mind telling us what their main 3 challenges are?
So some insights. Well, I would say a key challenge is not really identified as a challenge. It's really the impact of the COVID-19 and the way that the COVID-19 pandemic has actually disrupted the whole way of living that we have. We had a period during the spring and early summer. We thought we were through it during the summer, and now we're seeing it hit it back on the second half. Maybe it might even be the third coming later, we don't know. But that's changed the way we are addressing a number of issues. The way we meet, for example, the way we interact, which this is a case of, the way the global supply chains were clear, and the way that authorities addressed the COVID-19 immediately by shutting down, which affected production and value chains big time without any previous warning or signals, I would say. One could say, yeah, perhaps the company should have been aware, but they were not. This was the first time this happened, and a pandemic of this size, last time it happened was after the First World War, so no one really remembers it, I would say. But that's one of the things. How do they adopt? What is the new normal? And new normal in terms of value chains, well, maybe second sourcing is a necessity. You need to be able to source from different suppliers. Maybe it's necessary to expand your market, not only be focused on one area. We have examples of companies working with us in our organization who are doing the best time ever. They're working towards the building industry because a lot of people have been at home. They were short-term dismissed due to lack of work, and they spend a lot of time doing themselves. So we see these things happening constantly. So what is the new normal? Is this in the way we are meeting? The other area which they are concerned about is the skilling side, which we have addressed. Not so much the need for new skills. That's part of it, getting new people in, but it's really the reskilling and the way how to treat people that their skills are no longer needed in the environment. They have spent maybe half their working time in one company with one skill. How do they adopt the new reality and new skill? Who is going to finance it, and how are they going to bring that forward? That's not a problem if the company needs the new skill, but if the company does not need it, for example, diesel engineers, there will not be the same demand for diesel engineers going forward as it's been in the past. So how that is going to work out, that's one of the challenges. And combined there too, we have the issue of migrant workers, skilled migrant workers who see the world as a global scene. They want to work a couple of years here, a couple of years there. So that's one of the third challenges that we are facing. The third matter that they are addressing, they want to see the stable business environment. That means where people ourselves through decisions can influence it. That's where we should try to keep it stable. And these are concerns things like tax and social systems and these things that are linking and affecting the performance. If we can set up frames that are stable long term, then companies can address the uncertainties in a much more rigid and stringent manner. So instead of driving individual, shall we say, efforts for various good reasons, we try to combine it. And it was mentioned by Lena, the standard side. Well, we need to at least have a common European standard, if not worldwide standard for things, because that's how the companies will address them. So we have a number of different matters on the table, not all of them related to the core of industrial manufacturing, but without having a social system surrounding it, the manufacturing and the development side of manufacturing would never work.
So would you say, facing these challenges, it feels like you all agree on the skilling part, on the climate part, on the impact of COVID with the geopolitical changes? They all seem, you're very united in your view on this. So would you say that Sweden is ready for a great reset?
I think that we are at least talking about it, which I think is good. If you address a problem, you can do something with it. I think we have not seen the end of that story, but we might be just leaving we're going out on the hike and we're just leaving the house at the moment, I would say, because we don't really know where we're going to end up. But I think that we are seeing some of the questions which are very positive, and that's the positive side of the COVID-19 second attack now, which is coming. We can learn from the experiences which we had during the spring. And I think that's learning by doing, it's really important and drawing the right conclusions from it. An area where we need to improve far better is the work of authorities and on society side. Because if we don't have authorities that are supporting the change that is happening and which is happening globally and adopt that, then we will be left behind. I think that's an area where we really need to drive very hard on having an alignment, because the triple helix with authorities, education and industry, that is usually working very well. We're a small country, most of us know each other in different ways, so we can get things going, but we need to have also the formalities in place. So I think that yes, we are aligned, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And we are proud to be part of Production 2030, where a lot can be happening from it.
We are so happy to be under your umbrella in that sense, that we can be so closely linked to Swedish industry. I would like to connect back to Francisco. You have now heard more or less from the public and the private side in Sweden how we feel that we are standing, and also the university side. What do you think? Are we ready for the great reset in Sweden?
Well, let me put it this way. I think that no one is ready for the great reset. It's something that we need to, and again, that great reset is an intellectual framework to think how to restructure the way in which we do things and we run businesses and companies. So that's something that we need to start working on and building now. I do feel, and I mentioned that before, that Sweden has clearly a unique competitive advantage, whether it's on the technological side of things, whether it's on the qualification of the workforce, even the geographic position, right? I think that indeed, and the global relations it has, I think it's in a very unique position now. What I think are and I will build on what our colleague Lena mentioned before, but I think that one of the most critical priorities is skills. The world and companies are moving away from economies of scale into economies of skills. If you want to compete, if you want to stay relevant going forward, I think that going through massive updates when it comes to upskilling and reskilling of the workforce. And I said the workforce in a large sense is not just the shop floor operators. I'm talking about middle management and top management. To enable the war reset, the great reset, we need leaders to start thinking about the way in which they do business in a new way. The role of leadership and a responsible leadership has to change. So I would say that I would agree that skilling and upskilling, it's a strategic priority and an area on which your national community will need to further work on. The second one is that we are probably just at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. So maintaining that position of a global innovation hub for advanced manufacturing, and therefore continuous investing in technology in a practical and applied way is going to be critical as well. And then maintaining well that ability to connect with the rest of the world and therefore stay relevant and be part of global value chains is also going to be critical. But the answer is yes, Johan. I mean, you asked the question in a very direct way. I think the answer is yes. You are in a unique position. What is essential is that you keep this approach that you have taken through Production 2030, which is a very collaborative and multi-stakeholder approach to develop the solutions that are unique and tailored to the needs of the country, which are of course different from everywhere else.
So where do you think that Klas and Lena could engage in what you're doing in the forum?
So I think that we are running a series of global initiatives in which both representatives from the private sector, including business associations and government, directly through the ministries of industry or economy, but also civil society and academia are all engaged. I would like to point maybe three main opportunities in the short term. I think the Global Lighthouse Network, and I'll be happy to share with the community more materials. It's a growing and fast developing concept. We are now moving into, how do we recognize and acknowledge those companies who are transforming the way in which they operate at a global level. So not just the ones who were successful in adopting 4IR technologies in one specific facility or across one specific value chain, but at a global company level. And I believe that you have many players in Sweden that we could identify together. Why this network is important? I think it plays a little bit the role that, or what used to happen with Japan and lean manufacturing in the past. Everyone was running to Japan to learn what lean manufacturing Kaizen was about and to see it live. If today you want to see live what the fourth industrial revolution in manufacturing is about, how it looks like, how it is delivering operational and financial impact, you can go and visit this network of lighthouses. So I believe that there's an opportunity for further strengthening the presence of Sweden in this network by working in collaboration with you and your colleagues. The second one is that we are launching a new piece of work on the transformation of business models through advanced manufacturing technology. And there I think we have a unique opportunity to engage, with the Swedish business community to try to source examples or develop new pilots, proof of concept that can showcase how by digitizing your supply chains, your value chains end to end, you can start to enable those new value propositions, business models that are going to drive growth and economic growth and hopefully inclusive and economic growth in the future.
Thank you so much. Lena, what do you think about this? This seems to me like an open invitation to you, isn't it?
Yes, and thank you for that, Francisco. And I think it was an invitation to Teknikföretagen as well, because I think we really need to collaborate and deliver on this, because when it comes to these global lighthouse factories, I think we can actually find some more, and jointly with other parts and Production 2030, of course. So I think that we can actually just start to do it more or less tomorrow, just that we have to start this. So I think that's taken, so to say. And the other, when it comes to business models and new business models, we had actually at Business Sweden been looking into this and done some analysis, interviewed companies, tried to find good examples, cases as well. And it's quite hard because most companies say that they do not know how the business model should look like in the future. That's an issue. And we, of course, do not have the solution for this, but it's something that we need to discuss, look into as well, to understand the service revolution and service innovators. And I think it's a good idea to see if you have the cases, you can actually show best practice on what is this about, because I think it's quite hard to understand where to go when it's a big uncertainty out there. So I'm really happy to hear that you are open to collaborate, and we would like to be part of it.
Super.
So thank you.
And Klas, I interpret it as an invitation to you too. How can we help?
Well, thanks very much. And I interpret it as an invitation as well. And I think that we are involved in a number of different programs where we can expand the cooperation. And just to give you an example, we have the World Fair in Dubai coming up. It was supposed to take place already this year. Now it seems happening end of next year. Hopefully that will be there. We are hosting a challenge which is called Sustainable Cities Challenge or Smart City Challenge, which is really sustainable economy in a city. A city is a manageable size of land where you can actually concentrate various skills, which means that having a carbon neutral solutions in recycling and in not trying to avoid the problems that we are setting up today. So we're really looking forward to see how that could work, and giving that as an example and the showpiece addressing future challenges as we are all driving it. One aspect of Swedish industry is that we are very forward leaning when it comes to addressing societal challenges. But we need to be sure that what we see as a challenge is also what the other part of the world sees as a challenge. There is nothing wrong with being the leader, assuming that everybody else will follow. But being the leader where nobody follows, that's a dead end, and that's where we can't go. So looking forward to cooperation and hearing what can be the results and outcomes of that.
That sounds great, Klas. I hear that we have some questions also from the audience. Cecilia, would you like to help me on that?
Yes, I would. There are some questions, and I think they are sort of directed to you, Francisco. One is related to value chains and Industry 4.0, which we know quite well by now. You know, it's a very good concept. But what is the holistic view of the value chains? Because, for example, Sweden has quite a high level, very advanced manufacturing industry, as you know. I think the incoming goods to make a truck, for example, or a machine or a robot comes from all over the world. How do you at a World Economic Forum view the negative, I would say, sustainability issues regarding to these vast value chains that are spreading around the globe?
So maybe let me split the answer in two parts. I think the first one is that to get a clear understanding on what global value chain stands and how they will be reshuffled, as a consequence of the current crisis, I think that we do need to take a sector by sector approach. So if you look at, for example, the auto industry, we already have pretty much regional value chains in place, and those are unlikely to change. Look at, Canada, Mexico, and the US for the North American market, or look at, Europe, Eastern Europe and Northern Africa for the European broadened space, or Brazil and Argentina for the Latin Americans or South American markets. So there, we may not see major changes. And now, if you ask me about the healthcare pharma sector, well, what the crisis highlighted is that it's probably a national security issue. So we could expect a lot of new shoring and reshoring in that industry sector. So the first message is that we need to be careful when talking about trends and global value chains, because it would really depend industry by industry. The second one is that global value chains and globalization in general contributed massively to the world economic developments, and to take millions of people out of poverty. Then on the other side, it also created some discontents and tensions in developed countries, which resulted then in social unrest and other type of tension. So we are going to see a rebalancing. Because there's a call for doing so also coming from people, right? From our citizens. Now, in terms of the footprint, I think that there's an opportunity for reducing the carbon footprint across global value chains. But now that may not happen just by reconfiguring, by going local. which is often what we tend to discuss in relation to CO2 emissions and global value chains. I think it comes from the adoption of technology for making each and every of our facilities carbon neutral, carbon positive. And we know that that's possible. There are hundreds of manufacturing companies who have gone carbon neutral already. We know that it's going to come from making, transportation more environmental friendly by working on compensation. I think just maybe to conclude, a major shift that we have observed recently is that for the very first time, the discussion on global value chains, the relocation of manufacturing, the transformation of operations, and sustainability, it's driven by the chief operating and the chief supply chain officers. That means that the same people who are looking at how to optimize operations and enable the company future operating and business models are the ones who are incorporating sustainability as a major driver of resilience in their strategies. And I think that that's a great step change.
So thank you so much, Francisco. I think that we need to move on, right? What do you say, Cecilia? You're the head of the day here. We have.
Yeah. I know that we have. I know we have about 1 more minute before we will get back to Charlotte Brogren, our chair of Production 2030. And I could also add to what Francisco was saying here that I think a lot of Swedish companies also have the technologies to sort of keep the carbon footprint as low as possible. For example, getting the energy back to the grid and those kind of technologies, which we're also exporting even today on a global market.
So then I would like to thank Francisco so much for being here today. I know that you have a busy schedule, and I heard that from you that Switzerland is now peaking in a negative sense. We wish you health and well to you and your colleagues. I hope that you can stay healthy in these difficult times. I would like to thank Klas and Lena for your great contribution to this event, and I hope that you will now find the possibility to work with Francisco on the great reset towards 2021. Thank you so much, and over to you, Cecilia.